Morning paint fans, and welcome to the studio on this particularly grey, wet, crappy July morning. However, it's not boiling hot, which makes a nice change, and it also means that I can get a lot of painting done. However, on the flip side to that is if you're using a lot of washes and stuff, it's a pain in the ass. So I have just made myself a cup of coffee, and while this piece of work I'm currently doing is drying, I thought I would take the opportunity to make a quick vid and give you a quick update in terms of what's going on in the studio today. So the first thing you'll notice is that these are not blood angels. No, they are grots. So I'm doing a small piece called Smelly's Heroes, based on the movie Kelly's Heroes, and that is going to be a Rebel Grot tank company. And these are the amazing Forge World Rebel Grot tanks, which I just absolutely fell in love with when I saw them. These are obviously work in progress. We're nowhere near done on these yet. You will see on another video I put up ages and ages and ages ago. These have been sat in my to-do pile for eons, and I took a look at them this morning and just thought, you know, I'm going to do some work on these. But they kind of start out life. They've all been pre-shaded and salt weathered and everything else, and all this point is done with an airbrush. As you can see, it's nice, spraying all the rust and the seeping and stuff. This technique also works brilliantly well for Deathguard, which is very topical at the minute. So if you are looking at the other videos for weathering and stuff, that's a good way of doing it. And then I've obviously started to lay the foundation colours down for any OSL. There's more airbrush work to be done on this after the tank hull itself is painted. All the turrets are magnetised. That's them clipping to my wall. I have a metal plate mounted on the wall to the right hand side of me, where I can keep any magnetised pieces I'm currently working on, just to get them out of the way. Obviously, despite the fact I have a good sized little studio, space management is really important when you're doing lots of projects at any one time. All the turrets are, as I said, magnetised and movable. In fact, I'll try and just slide these out of the way and go through each tank in person. So once the airbrush work is done, you then go in with the brush, and you can see all sorts of what I've started to do is put oversprays, and this is done with a brush here, this additional line. So it looks like stencils have been used on the tank repeatedly, and then I've gone in with a series of different colour inks, and obviously started to pick out just the nuts and the rivets and the bolts, or the checker plates, bullet holes, and then hole areas. All the exhaust and stuff have been quite heavily battered, and I've done the tracks now. The tracks are kind of 90% done. It'll just be mud, like wet mud and shit on the tracks when they're finished. These are going to be in slush/snow. So once this wash is dried, you can see all the various different layers of paint and weathering, and I think there's 9 different layers of repaints on the tank on purpose. I built it up as I painted it and constantly chipped new bits because I wanted to look like they were properly cobbled together. And obviously if they're fighting in the mud and snow, rust is going to be a real problem. So, and they're grots, so they wouldn't care about rust either. So I think these bad boys are going to be pretty cool. I'm debating how much colour I actually go in and put on. Obviously we've got this lovely deep red spot colour, and normally I will stipple and blotch highlight that up a little bit to make the paint look continued flaky, and then I've got the options of painting in like the gas canisters and stuff like that. But actually I'm really kind of loving the real wartime kind of, rather than fantasy, slightly more realistic drab tanks. So I would genuinely love your comments and opinions. Should I spark up colour and add the checker plates and stuff to it, or should I do them as a pretty realistic and gritty set of armour? Obviously I've got to heat scorch all the flamers and everything else. I'm going to add graffiti and little handprints and stuff, so there will be spot colours, and obviously don't forget that the crew themselves are going to be, you know, reasonably coloured. Again, work in progress, but all of the crew are going to have some colour on them, so it might be worth it as a contrast, I'm not sure. But I would genuinely love your opinions, so please tell me in the comments. So next up we got this little bad boy. I really like these tanks. So you can build them in any number of ways, and the reason I magnetised the turrets, all with the exception of this one, is just so that we can, you know, swap them around if I get a bit fickle and a bit bored. And my idea is to do the 4 tank crew, and then one of the big Forge World artillery pieces, the Orc artillery pieces, on the back of a battle wagon. I can't remember what it's called, but that's all pre-sprayed up and ready to start using the inks. And it's kind of going a bit Mad Maxy, so there's going to be loads of grots hanging off it. And then these 4 will be up for auction when they're done. I think that's what I'll do. I might end up sticking them in the display cabinet, but I will probably auction them, give the kids some spending money on holiday. But they're pretty awesome. Okay, and what I really like about this is the depth of contrast you can get in the hull. So this isn't just ink brushed on. That's obviously far too easy, and it would pool and you get that white chalking most of the time with GW inks. They're great, but you know, if you get a bad one or you haven't mixed it properly, you will get white chalking. So these are various different inks, and then there's inks that have been sprayed under a layer of paint, knowing that they're going to leach through. So the Scale 75 inks, some of their Inktense colours are incredible, but they are so heavy pigment, they're so strong and vibrant that you spray over another 2 layers of an airbrush and it will leach through. So when you know that that's the quality of the paint, you can use that to your advantage. So here's an example. You can see where I've sprayed ink along the bottom line here, and then I've resprayed the entire armour section, and you can see that it's leached through here, and obviously it's leached through heavily here. That's been accentuated with ink and a brush as well. But it really gives you that totally believable layered effect of rust. You can see it really well here actually. So that brown wasn't sprayed on recently. That brown was probably sprayed on 2 or 3 layers ago, and then I've built the layers up and then I've accentuated that brown with ink, and what you're left with then is really good deep penetrating rust. It looks totally believable. And you can see that the external, instead of negative highlighting with an ink, so the easiest way to paint this would have been to just wash that entire plate with an ink, but if I bring it in close, you can see that that hasn't happened. Instead, the area that's wearing is the external area, so you can see the raised areas of the checker plates are the areas that are rusting, which is how it would actually be, because they're the most exposed to chipping and damage and water seepage. And I just thought it was an interesting way of doing it, again for some visual contrast in the tank. It appears a bit shiny at the minute. That's obviously because the wash is drying and it's still wet, but that will clearly matte up once it's all finished. Like simple effect, the rusting on the tank's ammo case at the back here, which is where they stick it all in the barrel and blow it out. But that's a really simple paint job. That's airbrush and ink, and I probably won't do any more to that because it really looks like a big mass of rusted metal. It's nice. Obviously with the missiles I'll be cheeky and add all sorts of faces and stuff like that because I love those, and I chose this little skull and crossbones as the symbol for the rebel grots. So they've got stars as well, but most of the symbols are the skull and crossbones, so all of the armour have the Smelly's hero pirate symbol on. And I may have mentioned it in a previous video, but for those of you who don't know, I use nail art stencils, or you know, for women who have their nails done in the parlours, sometimes they use airbrushes to just put on the pattern. And I discovered a while ago that some of the airbrush, I mean most of them are crap for miniature painting, but some of them you can get really nice details. Like the skull and crossbones is a nail art, sorry for knocking the camera, is a nail art stencil. So you whack that over the top of the red, blat it with the white, and then leach it in, and it's a really nice little thing, but it's also consistent, as you can see, across all of the armour. They've all got it on in varying stages, and then some of them, like this one, I've sprayed it on and then oversprayed it and sprayed it on, oversprayed it, so it's been re-stenciled after damage. So that is interesting, and it's a bit of fun. So those are obviously still continuing to dry, and I'm going to paint more on these today while the kind of the mood and the fancy has taken me. I also yesterday very quickly banged out this, and this isn't kind of varnish or shine. It's I think it's typhus corrosion that's created that gloss wet thing, or it might just be Nurgle rot. I don't know. But that's where the shine comes from. And if I was to hold it out of the white light, you can't see the shine. There we go. So this is a I don't know why I did it. I'm doing a Deathguard force. I picked this up. It was a cast resin thing, painted silver. I picked it up off eBay, and whoever sculpted it obviously isn't GW. It hasn't come from Forge World. They've done a really lovely job of it. So it's obviously Father Nurgle's 3 faces, and then I went in and repainted it in the same way that I always do Nurgle, that quick, you know, maybe 20-30 layers of glazes and built up the different textures and skins. But I really like the kind of rusted, corroded metal back on these. It's just really nice. And I think what I'll do is when I finish the Death Company army, I'm going to put them in a metal case because it'll all be magnetised and transport case. So I think I will use this as the decoration for the front of the case, just to be a little bit sort of poncy. And obviously you will have seen on the other videos, but I'm doing a small Nurgle force at the minute, and it'll be the Deathguard from the new box set, and then a few other choice ones like this, and just to a nice gaming standard, just for a bit of fun. To be honest, there's no competition work here, although it wouldn't take a great deal more to elevate these to competition level. But they're looking really good. They're a lot of fun. And I'm also obviously banging out all the pox walkers and everything else to go with that. So these are also a lot of fun. I can't get it to focus. Actually, this is the one I did on the how to do it in 30 minutes video. So you can see what he looks like in a bit more detail now, rather than that hurried video. So this model was painted in 36, maybe 37 minutes, with the breaks with the kids interrupting me, just to prove a point and to show people how you can paint the poxwalkers really quickly. This one is probably got about another 10 minutes in him. They're really good fun to paint. I really like these. You can really get a variety of skin tones and textures on them. You can really build up that lovely mottling. And I really like the models. They're just, I mean, they're not attractive models, obviously they're Nurgle, but the textures that are worked into them for a painter are a shit ton of fun. Total hats off to Games Workshop. They're absolutely banging it out of the park at the minute. That being said, I'm also utterly despising Games Workshop at the minute, not for a particularly negative reason, but the Death Company that I'm doing, the models are absolutely riddled with detail. I mean, they are kick-ass in terms of how much detail is sculpted onto these models, but for a painter working on commission, oh my god, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of work, just to get to the point where you've got 40 guys sort of looking interesting. So obviously these aren't finished yet, but I'm doing they've all fallen to the rage, so they're all looking extremely haggard and vampiric, and they none of them are overly happy. So again, you can see another right focus angry dude, but they're lovely models. But I'm cursing Games Workshop because, you know, they've all got daddy issues and there's so many blood drops and stuff on them. But these are going to look really good when they're done. Okay, well, I'm going to finish now before I run over the 15-minute limit you get, and I'll probably do another one in a little while. Cheers, and thank you for watching. As always, your support means loads to me. Please help me grow my following by liking, sharing and subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thanks guys, bye.